People's biggest problem is that they can't remember what they study. But not the Japanese. They memorize 2,000 kanji before they're 10. They outperform the world in exams for math, science, reading, all of it. And no, it's not just because they're smarter than all of us. It's because they follow a memory system so intense, so layered, that it makes forgetting nearly impossible. And that is why I spent the last few weeks reverse engineering their exact study cycle. Every class, every cram session, every repetition they do. And then I rebuilt it step by step into a system that anyone can steal. The same one that the world's sharpest students are already using to kill their exams. But here's the twist. As powerful as Japan's system is, it has one brutal flaw. And the fix is surprising. It comes from a country whose students barely study and still top the same exact exams. You'll find out at the end, but for now, the Japanese study cycle. Step 1. Problem first approach. I know exactly how you study. You learn the formulas, you memorize the steps before you try the question because you have to know the context, you have to know the stuff before you try the question, right? No. In Japan, math teachers throw the entire class into a hard, open-ended question first and force them to work through it. They let them struggle, talk, test ideas, and fail. Only after that does the teacher then explain the concept and teach it to the class. This is called structured problem solving, and it's genius. In Japan, over half of their math lessons are built like this. That is why they don't panic in exams. They've trained their brain to think, not just follow steps like robots. And you can do the same thing by following this simple cycle. Before starting the topic, pick 2 to 3 of the hardest questions from the end of the chapter. Try to solve them blind, and yes, you'll get them all wrong, but while you're doing so, ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, what is this question testing exactly? What specific things? And number 2, which specific steps confuse me the most? And then you go learn the topic with those gaps in mind. And watch, you'll notice something very weird. The information will suddenly stick a lot easier when you read through it. Because you're not learning passively anymore. You're solving a puzzle that you've already given a go at. But solving the puzzle once isn't really enough. Because the real issue comes when you have to remember it 48 hours later and your brain is itching to press the hit delete button forever. And the Japanese students, they solved this problem decades ago. That is why after school they go to something that the rest of the world can't even fathom to do. Juku. Private cramming schools. 60% of students go to these nearly every day after school. And they do something different from any other school. They don't teach new content. They reteach what you've already done in class, but only through rapid fire testing, short recall bursts, and aggressive mistake analysis. Literally, instead of waiting a week to test yourself, Juku makes them do a micro test of the same topic that they learned that same day. No notes allowed, timed 10 to 20 exam style questions, even if they fail. Number 2, they do an error breakdown, looking at the exact step of each question that they got wrong and why. And number 3, they redo the whole thing a few days later. Micro-testing. All with exam-style questions, and they do this with multiple topics on each day, new and old. It's a pretty fast-paced, ruthless system if you think about it, and as you can imagine, it's quite effective. But we don't need Juku to do it. What we need is a recall system of our own to remember everything. My suggestion at the minimum is that once a week, you pick your weakest subject and replicate what they do like this. Do it with one subject and watch how much your understanding shoots through the roof with this frequent rapid testing. Also, if you're serious about learning smarter and want the real behind the stuff that I'm doing each week, from the exact resources I'm using, the templates, the PDFs, the videos, to the learning insights I might not have time to share on here, then sign up to my absolutely free newsletter, Study Scoop. Link is in the description. It's highly practical, they're short emails, and I'll make you better very quickly. Now, most students will stop here. Come on, you've done so much in class, you've done Juku, but these kids are insane. They go one more round after that. They get home, and they continue working. They do something called Tekesutu wo utsu, so I definitely butchered that for sure, but it means copying the text, and it is the 3rd piece of their system. They rewrite their notes by hand and summarize out loud to memorize. And while I would despise this note-taking time waste, it is the final step for them, and it's one that locks in the information for them. It takes ages, but it works, so respect the process. As an alternative at this stage, however, if you don't have time to make all those tons and tons of notes that these guys are making, is to create a quick flowchart of the difficult topics that you have. And the way to do this fastest is do it online using a tool like eDrawMind. You'll condense and simplify what you're learning and avoid all this rewriting that the Japanese do themselves. Let me show you what I do with an example topic. I'd open up eDrawMind, here, blank template, and start adding the subheadings that each topic is broken up into side by side. Then I'd categorize and add the concepts within each of the headings. And then only once I've categorized each of the headings would I add the appropriate details. What this does is, number 1, it'll help me visually organize the topic that I'm studying so it's all in front of me, laid out in a format that I can easily understand. And number two, it'll help me compare between each of the subtopics in the sections that I'm organizing. And that comparison will stick in my brain for far longer than just rewriting the notes or reading one fact at a time. There's infinite canvases on here as well. Plenty designs to choose from depending on the topic and your goal. Honestly, I would just create this quick flowchart instead of those notes. And if you're particularly lazy, you can even use their one-click mind map generation to AI generate a flowchart of the entire topic. It's a very good tool as long as you're not just reading the flowchart, but instead using it to organize different parts of the topic in your head. And then finding the links, similarities, and differences between the different concepts on there. That's what really trains your brain to learn faster. To try out eDrawMind and create those quick flowcharts of the topics, click the link in my description. Again, link in the description for eDrawMind. I'll put the discount up here as well. But please, if nothing else, create the flowcharts instead of the rewriting a billion times and note-taking. But by now you've realized what I did too. This is crazy. The average student in Japan studies 6 to 8 hours after school. The average. So I kept digging because I couldn't shake off one question. Is there a way to get the same insane results without the insane level of workload? And turns out there was. In Finland, Finnish students on average studied 30 minutes a day, and for the exact same exam are still one of the highest scoring countries in the world. So what the hell do they do differently? And what I found out really surprised me. Instead of jumping straight to notes or practice, they do one thing that everyone else skips. They prime their brain before they learn. And the way they do this is by making students do something called concept mapping, even for subjects like maths or physics. This is an example of it. Their most successful students said that they create concept maps for all of the difficult topics that they need to study. Before starting the topic in class, number one, they spend time skimming through the topic's chapter or PowerPoint to gauge the general idea and structure of the topic. Number two, while they do that, they take note of 10 to 15 main key terms that the topic is focused on. The headings, the subtitles, the concepts. Not every fact needs to be on there, just the 10 to 15 main things that the topic is about. Number three, they then connect each of these 10 to 15 terms with arrows on a page based on how they're related to each other. And finally, number four, they label each of the arrows connecting two terms with a word that describes the relationship between them. In our basic example that the study showed, pause and you can clearly see. It's like each term reads out like a sentence. This causes this. This is a type of this. This can be solved by this. And the point is, at this stage, they're not trying to be correct. They're just trying to build a rough scaffold so that their brains are primed and ready to take in the topic faster and better than ever before. So they already have a base before tackling it. Which, as you can imagine, reduces the amount of time that they have to do hardcore questions and studying like the Japanese do by quite a lot. Because now when learning a topic, instead of walking into an empty room where you don't know anything, you walk into a room with pegs already there where you can hang information onto. And yes, the reason I was surprised is because, for those of you watching me regularly, you know that this sounds very similar to the pro mind mapping method that I have promoted on the channel that I use for all of my studying. So newsflash, it works. And the insane global scores of these kids prove it more than I ever could in a video. So yes, copy the Japanese for their drills and testing methods. But if you want to study less and do it more efficiently, then do what the Finnish figured out as well. Map the concepts before you jump into the questions. You'll spend much less time studying. But what I want you to understand is that remembering specifically for exams is more than just repetitions. You need to use those top level memory techniques, a full system actually, that makes forgetting impossible. And lucky for you, I've made a full 30-minute guide on memorization for competitive exams filled with practical actions, no fluff, just a no BS system. I'd recommend. Check it out. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, do all the usual stuff, and I will see you in the next one.